What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we're finishing up our talks on the path of the Giant Barbarian, the new one that was introduced very recently in the new Bigby's book, and I am very excited to be bringing you my version of it in a build. Of course, we do these every week, and of course there will be a build guide available to all of my channel members, so make sure to join the channel if you would like access to all of my write-ups for all of my builds. I also do write-ups for all of my subclass fixes as well. Those are also available at the very lowest tier of becoming a channel member. It really helps me out in making these videos, and of course it gives you something nice to be able to take to your DM and show you, or just keep for yourself, whatever you would like to do. Of course, if you would like to support the channel even more, which would help me out even more, at the silver level, you of course are going to get a special shout out at the beginning of my videos, and that is always going to be great. You also get access to all of my videos 24 hours early, so that way you can always say first in the comments. Nobody else can say that, and you're always gonna just be correct. So there you go. And of course, finally, the gold tier is going to give you priority picks in helping me to choose some of my video topics. So that is going to be my variety builds. You're going to get access to a special part of my Discord in order to discuss that with me in what we should do for our next variety build, and other videos in general. There may be some other things in the pipeline, and gold members of course get access to that as well. So please consider that. If you don't want to, that's totally fine. Being here and subscribing is more than enough, and so I really appreciate all of you for being here. Also, before we jump into it, make sure to check out the other series that I have going on the channel right now. I put out my UNPL Pokemon Draft League analysis last week on Friday, and the first week of that competition goes up tomorrow, so make sure that you check that out. It is a ton of fun. It's basically fantasy football but for Pokemon, and it's a really good time, so I think you guys will enjoy that. Of course, leave a like on that, and it really helps me out in showing that support. With all that out of the way, let's get into the build. So the Giant Barbarian is really interesting, right? It's different, it's fun, it's got some cool stuff going on with it, but ultimately it is somewhat flawed in its execution, right? We talked about that a ton in Tuesday's video. That'll be up in the icon above, so make sure you check that out before you watch this video. But the way that this kind of works is you get all of these features that help you with thrown weapons. You eventually get to throw other creatures, but there is a little bit of a disconnect from the base kit of Barbarian, which makes it not quite as good as what it could be. I said that a lot, that they could have pushed it just a little bit further and it would have been fine. I do want to find ways that we can make the most of this subclass, and I do think that there are some ways that we can optimize it with feats and possibly some multi-classing. But ultimately, I think that it's a decent kit, right? It's fine, right? With some things that we can do here, I think that we can make it work and have a really satisfying build that's a lot of fun, both mechanically and, you know, outside of combat. I think you can have a lot of fun with this as well. So with all that out of the way, let's start taking some levels. Starting off, as always, we have our race, and I talked about this race a lot in Tuesday's video, so you probably knew this is where I was going with this. But we're going to go with the Bugbear. The Bugbear is one of my favorite races that was reworked in the Monsters of the Multiverse book not too long ago. And it's got some really fun things, especially when it comes to going along with this type of a subclass. Number one, we of course get Dark Vision, which is kind of just a staple, right? We get Fey Ancestry, which is a fantastic feature. I would say it's underrated. I think everybody knows that it's really good. But we also get a couple of other things here. We get Long Limbed. Long Limbed gives us an extended reach, right? We're also going to get an extended reach in this subclass, and then it's going to get extended again, and we're going to find ways to have an absolutely massive reach, and it's going to be a ton of fun. So we're just stick with me on that. We also get Powerful Build. Now, I don't normally mention Powerful Build just because, you know, it has to do with push, pull, drag, carry, that kind of thing, right? However, the wording is not you are treated as a large character, right? It is you are treated as a character one size larger than yourself, right? You are going to be growing to size large when you rage with this subclass. Therefore, you are going to be able to scale even more so than with this. And eventually, once we get far enough in and all of our features get upgraded, we can grow to size huge and then use the rules for gargantuan. So it's really interesting how that works. And so that could definitely come into play if you need to move, I don't know, an entire mountain. You might be able to do that with this. So interesting combination there, just something to consider. We also have sneaky, which is interesting that you can be so large and be good at being sneaky. I don't know, but that's a thing. And you also get surprise attack. We're not going to make as much use of surprise attack in this build, but surprise attack is great if you happen to roll really well on your initiative, and then you can kind of go nuts. Yeah, this can definitely be huge. If you want a build that really makes the most of surprise attack, check out my variety build, the ultimate sniper build. That one goes insane and includes the surprise attack feature as well. For our stats, of course, we're going to be using our modified standard array as always. I say this in every one of my videos, but if your table uses a different method, and you probably do, then your stats are going to look a little bit different than mine. If you use rolled stats, if you use point buy, if you use standard array, if you use whatever system, your stats are going to look different, and that's totally okay. You can, of course, adjust your stats accordingly and just go in the order of which mine are from highest to lowest. So for our stat array here, we're going to go in with our highest stat in our strength. Our second highest is going to go in our constitution. Our third is going to go into our wisdom. Fourth in dexterity, and then charisma and intelligence, we don't really care. Those can be dumped as far as I'm concerned. But we definitely want a good strength. We want a good constitution. We want a decent wisdom. We need at least a 13 in wisdom. And then dexterity is kind of in there. So if you can make wisdom and dexterity even through a point buy, then that's fine too. We just need at least a 13 in wisdom at this point. And so yeah, just go in that order, whatever you want to do. Of course, with Monsters of the Multiverse, we get 3+1s, or you can do a +2+1, but I'm going to go with the 3+1s and just round out each of those odd numbers there. And then for our equipment, we really don't need a whole lot. We're a barbarian, so we're really not we're not super picky on some things. Probably would want to go ahead and wear medium armor on this build just because our dexterity is not going to be that great, so unarmored defense isn't going to be all that useful. So just grab the best medium armor. The negative to your stealth is going to be somewhat counterbalanced by sneaky, so that helps out a little bit. It's not quite there, but it helps. It at least helps, right? So that's something you can do. I would also grab a polearm, whatever your favorite polearm is, and then you can also grab some spears as well, or some other kind of ranged weapon that works out for you. That will help you out here in the early game. Once we get long enough into this, I don't think it's going to be something we're going to really use. We're probably going to be using the polearm for most everything, but it is an option for you for now, and definitely nice to have a bit of a ranged option as a barbarian. So now we get to start leveling up here, and at level 1, we're going to be a barbarian. So I know normally I will multi-class in different things and start out in certain classes and things, but I think starting barbarian here is really what makes the most sense. I will say that the multi-classing in this particular build is very light, and it's not typical of what I normally do. But I think it's easy to follow, which is good. That's a little different than what I normally do. But I think that it's actually really good. And I think that this build really shows off what the Barbarian kit can do and is capable of. So I think you guys are going to like that. But we got to start out with Barbarian, right? We, of course, pick out Rage here at level 1. Rage, of course, gives us a little bit of a damage bonus once we have activated this as a bonus action. We get advantage on strength checks and strength saves, and we get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Of course, you activate this as a bonus action, and of course, it will last as long as you keep on swinging, basically. There are a couple of things that can end your Rage, but for the most part, as long as you're still making attacks, then you're going to be fine. And of course, we have our ranged weapons here so that you can make those attacks to make sure that you can maintain your Rage. We also get unarmored defense, but like I said before, we're really not going to be making use of this due to our low dexterity. At level 2, we're going to continue in Barbarian, and we're going to pick up 2 things here, Reckless Attack and Danger Sense. Like I talked about on Tuesday, Reckless Attack isn't really supported in the ranged weapon department as far as throwing weapons. So anytime you throw a weapon, this reckless advantage that you get is not going to be a thing. So just be careful about that. Don't say, I'm going to go reckless and then throw your weapon, because you're not going to get advantage and then everyone's going to have advantage on you. So don't do that. That's one thing that's a little interesting here that I wish that they were compatible, because I think that would make this so much better. But it's not, because I think they don't want us to have free advantage on things for multi-classing into rogue, but we already do that anyway. But whatever, we take what we can get here. Then we also get Danger Sense, which gives us advantage on dexterity saving throws against effects that we can see, which is going to always be a good thing. Dex saves are very common, especially when it comes to traps. And let's be real, our Barbarian is not very intelligent, so our character is probably going to walk into many traps, and so this will help with survivability quite a bit. At level 3, we of course get our subclass, and we're going to of course take the Path of the Giant. With the Path of the Giant, we get a few features here. We get Giant's Power, which gives us the language of our choice here if we didn't already have Giant. We also get a cantrip of our choice, either Druidcraft or Thaumaturgy. I'm going to actually go with Druidcraft here, even though Thaumaturgy is going to be better most of the time, because we're going to be able to get Thaumaturgy later in the build anyway, so that's why. But if you don't want to do the multi-classing that I do later on, by all means take Thaumaturgy. It is just a better spell, usually in most cases. We also get Giant's Havoc here, and Giant's Havoc, of course, is what gives us our rage damage bonus whenever we throw weapons, which is fine. That's only a bonus of +2 right now. It will go up to +4 eventually. It's nothing crazy. So yeah, it is what it is. But then Giant Stature, of course, allows us to have an extended reach. So now we have a 10-foot extended reach, plus the reach from our weapons. So, you know, we take up now a 10 by 10 area because we are size large. And then we, beyond that, have a 15-foot range past that. So we're taking up a lot of room, and that's pretty cool. We can make attacks from a really long way away, and it's only going to get better as we go. Of course, this also goes into play, like I said, with powerful build. So we of course can grow to size large, and then we can scale up one size from there when it comes to what we can push, pull, drag, and carry. So we've got a lot that we can do with that. Maybe it's more of a flavor feature most of the time, but you never know, it could come in handy. Also with this level, we get Primal Knowledge if you're playing with the optional rules from Tasha's. I personally do, but if you don't, then that's fine. But I like Primal Knowledge here, giving us another skill proficiency, and then of course we'll get that again at level 10, so definitely something cool there. I don't have any recommendations. If you don't have Athletics, probably take that. But besides that, kind of pick your favorite. There's not anyone in particular that I'm attached to for this character. At level 4, we get our first ASI or feat, and you already know we're taking Polearm Master here at level 4. Polearm Master combined with our huge range is going to be really great when we do something else here in just a little bit. But this allows us to, of course, make opportunity attacks when something enters our radius. Our radius is huge, so we can catch a lot more creatures than what we normally would be able to, which is pretty cool. We also get to make what I call the butt action attack. So as a bonus action, you can basically flip the weapon around and deal a d4 of damage with your weapon. So that's pretty cool as well, giving us an additional attack for some additional damage. Of course, we can be reckless while we do that. So, you know, it's not that much damage, but it's something. And I'm all about it. I think it's pretty cool. So we absolutely take that. At Barbarian 5, we of course get extra attack, which is great. We're now attacking twice as much as we were before. Well, I guess we already were technically attacking once with our bonus action, but we're making full attacks twice in a turn now rather. So that's always going to be a good thing. At Barbarian 6, we get one of our new features here, Elemental Cleaver. So now we can change the damage type of our weapon to one of the elemental types on the list. I personally like Thunder here, at least for now. If something does happen to resist Thunder, which is rare, as a bonus action, you can switch it. You could probably go to something like Acid. That may be a little bit better for you. Eventually, we're going to switch to something else entirely. But for now, I think Thunder is going to be your best one most of the time. So definitely go with that. It's a little bit of extra damage, which is pretty cool. We also can now throw our polearm and it will return to us. So that's also something, if for some reason you can't close the distance, then this is something you can do. So definitely consider using that. Next up at level 7, we get Feral Instinct and we get Instinctive Pounce. Feral Instinct is actually really cool for this build because we get advantage on initiative, which combos with our surprise attack. So that definitely can help out quite a bit. It also basically makes us immune from the surprised condition as long as we rage first thing, which I don't know why we wouldn't. So that's also pretty useful. I really like that. And then Instinctive Pounce, of course, as part of our bonus action that we use to rage, we can move up to half our speed. That's pretty great for helping us to get into position. So I really like that. Those both work well together perfectly, especially with this subclass. So really, really great features here. Can't put those off at all. Barbarian 8, we of course get another ASI or feat, and you already know we're taking Sentinel. Sentinel is going to be so nice for something like this, because when something is so far away, is trying to run towards us, and we stop them in their tracks, there's no way they're going to be able to reach us. They are way too far out unless they have a ranged option, right? So all melee characters that get hit by an opportunity attack by you are just completely screwed. And I absolutely love that. It doesn't matter if they have a reach weapon. They're still not going to get you because your reach is so much longer than anybody else's. That's what's so cool about this build. It's really, really, really fun being able to shut down some big melee character that's coming running at you. No, you're going to stay over there, and then you get to sit there while everybody flings spells or arrows at you, and it's going to be great. It's going to be incredibly entertaining, and I absolutely love it. At Barbarian 9, we of course get Brutal Critical, the first die of that anyway. So that's fine. I think Brutal Critical is okay. We don't have any way to necessarily boost our crit chances on this build outside of Reckless Attack. So, you know, it's fine. I think it'll come up because we can attack with advantage in melee. So, you know, it's nice. It's nice. Barbarian 10, we get Mighty Impel in our second round of Primal Knowledge. So now we, of course, can throw people, which is pretty cool. I don't know if I would typically throw my allies or if I would typically throw my enemies. To me, throwing enemies seems a little bit more useful, but throwing allies also has its merits. You can always run up to your wizard or your sorcerer and throw that character all the way across the map, well, 30 feet anyway, and get that character completely out of harm's way, which can be very, very helpful. You also can take an enemy and throw it in the air 30 feet, or you could throw it towards some other bad effect like a grease, throw it into an incoming fireball, throw it into whatever you want to do. There are all kinds of nasty AoE spells that this could can lead to something getting absolutely destroyed by. But to me, if we're thinking about this just solo, I really like the idea of taking my bonus action and throwing the character straight up in the air and it falling prone when it lands, plus taking fall damage of 3d6. Then you can, of course, action and extra attack into that character at advantage without having to go reckless, which is really, really good. That helps you out a lot defensively. So I really like that. I think it's pretty cool. Then at Barbarian 11, we get Relentless Rage. This, of course, gives us the ability to basically live through what would be a deathly experience, or at least a 0 HP experience. While we're raging, we, of course, can make a saving throw. If we pass it, then we just go to 1 HP instead. And then, of course, the DC gets higher as we go. But definitely can be very, very helpful for sure. Next up, Barbarian 12, we get our next ASI or feat here. I'm going to go ahead and bump my strength up and max that out at 20. We may have the best feats in the world, but if we can't hit our attacks, then it doesn't even matter. Plus, it gives us a little bit of extra damage on there as well. really, really great to have that. Then at Barbarian 13, we get our second round of brutal criticals. So there's 2 dice there instead of just 1. And at Barbarian 14, we get Demiurgic Colossus. This, of course, is going to buff every feature that we have gotten so far in this subclass. So we, of course, have another extension to our range, which is just going to make our Polearm Master Sentinel combination go even harder. We can now grow to size huge, which again makes everything take up that much more room. And our Mighty Impel can affect creatures that are large or smaller. And then it also improves that Elemental Cleaver feature as well and deals 2d6 damage on top of everything. So really cool. I think that this is the way to do a capstone, right? But what's nice about Barbarian is that their capstone comes so early, right? So, and I mean, I say early, right? Early in the grand scheme of things, because most people are going to stop playing around 11 or 12. But if you do go on to this, I think going straight 14 levels in Barbarian is probably going to be your best option. Beyond this, I do think that it begins to kind of fall off, and I don't think we get as much use out of the last 6 levels. Yes, Barbarians have one of the best capstones in the game raising those stats, but I'm impatient and I want to try to do something really cool rather than necessarily something really powerful. So this is a lot for flavor, but there is a mechanical benefit here, and I want to discuss that as we go on here. So we're going to go ahead and, be looking for something else at this point. We've gone this far, and yet something's been missing from our lives. Something is drawing us above or wherever, and we now seek a deity to push us even further. We're going to take some cleric levels and finish out this build in cleric. At cleric 1, of course, we get to choose our subclass here, and we also get spellcasting. But for the subclass, I mean, it's pretty obvious. We're going Tempest Cleric. Tempest Cleric, of course, gives us the storm-based things, and it really works well off of thunder and lightning damage, both of which are available to us through our Elemental Cleaver. So we can combo that pretty well here. This build actually reminds me a ton of the Get Away From Me and My Son build. If you haven't seen that, that's a really good variety build. It's the mix between Blood Hunter and Cleric, and it's really fun. So make sure to check that out up in the icon above. A lot of people say they really love that build. I've had a lot of people say that they have watched that and they have taken this build and are going to their respective tables and showing it to DMs and playing that kind of thing. So definitely check that out. It's a really, really cool build if you can use things that are by Matt Mercer at your table. But anyway, with Tempest Cleric, we of course get a couple of things. We get our bonus proficiencies, which don't matter. We also get Wrath of the Storm, which can matter. It definitely can matter. Our AC isn't crazy. It's really meant for someone who's wearing heavy armor, which we are not. It's meant for something that has a really good AC, which we really don't. So it's fine, I guess. Like, it's okay. But we're not going to be missed most of the time, seeing how we have reckless attack and we also don't have the best armor. So this may not come up all that much, but if it does, nice. That's great, but it probably won't come up very often at all. But for our spell casting, this will come up quite a bit. Remember that you cannot cast spells while you're raging, so be careful about that. So we're going to try to tend to take things that will work outside of combat, because inside combat is just kind of a no-go for us. So with this, we're going to get things like guidance. We can take things like Spare the Dying, and you guessed it, Thaumaturgy. It took us this long to get Thaumaturgy, which we could have had at level 3, but it's fine. It's totally fine. We now get this. And then if you want to take some other stuff, that's fine. Most of the others rely on you having a good wisdom and are more on the offensive side. I don't really care for those for a build like this. So those 3, I'm good. Then for first level, we get Fog Cloud and Thunderwave for free. I would also consider things like Bless, Healing Word, and Detect Magic. All 3 of those are going to be really nice options for you. At Cleric 2, we of course get Channel Divinity. So we get 3 different options here. Turn Undead, we also get Harness Divine Power, and we get Destructive Wrath. Turn Undead, of course, is going to allow us to turn undead, exactly like what it sounds, and they have to run away. At this level, you're probably not going to be powerful enough to really make a huge impact with this. Maybe it'll come up, I don't know. If so, it won't be often, so don't really rely on that. Of course, Destructive Wrath allows us to maximize our thunder or lightning damage with the use of this. we're not going to be dealing all that much damage with the thunder and lightning portion. If you want to, you're more than welcome to, especially if you are to crit, because that is one thing to think about here, right? Because we are changing the type of damage that we're dealing with our weapon to the elemental type, right? It's not just going to be, you know, adding that on, right? So if we were to get a big crit, this might be something worth using, actually, because that is our weapon damage, that is our brutal critical, which just adds the same type as the weapon, which is not bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. It's the elemental type. So there's some use here. There's definitely something going on, and I can see that working. Most of the time, though, I think that I'm going to go with Harness Divine Power in order to get back some spell slots if I need it. But like I said, if you are to crit, I would Destructive Wrath all day long, and I think that would be really, really helpful. At Cleric 3, we of course get our second level spells, and we get Gust of Wind and Shatter for free. Not sure how much we're going to be using those, but they're there. We also get things like Aid, Enhance Ability, Prayer of Healing, and Warding Bond. All of those are pretty decent for outside of combat things. Then at Cleric 4, we get our final ASI or feat of this build. I want to tell you to take a +2 in your Constitution. I really do. It would help you with concentrating on certain spells if you wanted to. It would help you with your HP. It would help you with a lot of those things. But I've got to tell you to take Great Weapon Master. I have to do it. It's right there. I can't turn away from that, especially since we've already done the Polearm Master thing. We've already done the Sentinel thing. I got to do it. I got to do it. So it's right there. We take it. Okay, we're in, we're out. That's we're not going to talk about it all that much. We take it. It's fine. Cleric 5, we get Destroy Undead upgraded to a CR of 1/2. Again, probably not going to come up all that much here at level 19, but who knows, maybe. We also get Call Lightning, Sleet, and Sleet Storm for free, and I would also consider taking things like Aura Vitality, Beacon of Hope, Mass Healing Word, Revivify, and Sending if you don't have any of those in your party yet. Finally, level 20, Cleric 6, we get our Thunderous Strike, and wouldn't you know it, whenever we deal lightning damage, we can push back a creature. So yeah, we just change our damage type over to that, and those creatures are never getting anywhere near your party. It's not going to happen unless they all rush you at once. And even then, they're probably just going to get nay-nayed by something else. So yeah, it's a really fun take on this. So I think that's really cool. So what do you think about today's build? Today's build is fun. I think it's a really interesting take on this barbarian. But I mean, think about this, right? Ultimately, there is a lot of power in what's going on here, right? You take up a 3x3 square if you're huge, right? You then have extended reach of an additional 5 feet from Giant's Havoc, an additional 5 feet from Long Limbed, an additional 5 feet from having a polearm, and then an additional 10 feet from Demiurgic Colossus. So you take up 15 feet, plus you have a reach of 25 feet. That is a massive area on a map. And I honestly, like, melee characters are completely screwed because they can't reach you and you can just hit them way before they get to you. And that's just kind of not fair for a lot of things. And I think that's a ton of fun. So definitely something to consider playing if you have not, if you've not been looking at this one, if it hasn't been on your radar, definitely consider it. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool. So of course, before we leave today, let's go through our honorable mentions. For our races, honestly, any small race is just going to be hilarious. I love the idea of the halfling barbarian, right? Or the dwarven barbarian. I love it. I think it's just so fun, so funny. And that's what I would do. Honestly, if it wasn't for the bugbear, I would do a small race just so that I can have that surprise factor with everybody. It's so cool. I love it. Next up for our feats, I'm going to go with things like Crusher and Slasher. Those are going to be big ones here because 1, they are affected by crits. 2, they affect movement. 1 pushes, 1 slows down. Both are really, really cool for a build like this, especially if you run either a glaive or you also can do something for Crusher. But either way, it's really cool. And they definitely also have ways of working well with the ability to have this thrown as well. You know, normally Piercer is one of the only ones that helps out because arrows are really one of the only weapons that go at range like this. This opens that up quite a bit, and so you could have Slasher going at a distance. You could have Crusher going at a distance here a lot more realistically than a lot of your other builds. Of course, it's completely possible with other builds, but it's not so clear cut as it is with this one. So definitely something to think about there. And of course, Warcaster. Warcaster is definitely one that I would at least consider. With a little bit of different multi-classing, you of course could get some different things going on here and have a lot of fun with that. But Warcaster, of course, would allow you to help with maintaining your concentration. So that's the biggest one for me. If you wanted to concentrate on some big spells there, definitely could help out. And finally, for our other classes that you should at least consider, the Blood Hunter, if you haven't looked at it, you definitely should at least think about it, especially Profane Soul, but basically any of them are fine besides the Lycan. Any of them would be pretty cool here because then you get to deal even more elemental damage with your Crimson Rites. So definitely a really cool thing. It may not be available at all tables. It is a Matt Mercer created thing. I allow it at my tables, but I know my table is not yours. And so definitely talk to your DM and see if that's allowed. Next up, of course, the Rune Knight Fighter. The Rune Knight Fighter screams giant type of flavor here and makes a lot of sense on this kind of a build. I definitely considered doing something like this, but it seemed a little redundant ultimately. And so that's why I didn't end up going with that. And of course, you also could go with something like the Gloomstalker Ranger. Gloomstalker Ranger could be very interesting on a build like this, although it really throws off your multi-classing as far as what stats you need to be good, because then you'd have to bump your dexterity up too. So I don't know if it's worth it, but as far as features go, there's definitely a lot of synergy here, especially with things like the surprise attack. It works out really well with your Umbral Sight, so that's definitely something to think about as well. So that's our build for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Of course, if you want a guide to all of this, make sure that you join the channel, and I would really appreciate that. Make sure to check out tomorrow's Pokemon video. We are off to an interesting start. I'm really excited for you all to see what happens in that battle. It's going to be a really good one. And then of course next week we're going to begin our cover on the Ranger, so be looking forward to that. Until next time, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.